What is it like to really work with bookkeeping clients? You guys, if you've never visited my channel before, my name is Rachel Brown. This is Realistic Bookkeeping. I'm gonna get straight to it. Today's video is all about my top 2 issues working with clients. I've been doing this side business of bookkeeping for about 5, almost 6 months now, and I'll try to link some videos to the very beginning of my journey. But at this point, I have a handful of clients, and it has been a struggle to get them. But I am so ever grateful for the opportunity to learn with new clients and really figure out what do I struggle with and how can I be better about communicating with clients, making my expectations really clear, providing clear goals for myself as their bookkeeper, and how to help them be the ideal client. If you have watched videos from any other bookkeeper, then you've heard this idea of niching. I made a video recently about whether I have a niche and whether I think it's a good idea to have a niche before you get bookkeeping clients. I will link that video here. But once you get your clients and you really start to work through not just 1, but maybe 2 or 3 and multitasking with them, there are some issues and concerns that are going to present themselves. And I'm going to talk about those here. At the end of this video, I'm even going to throw in my most embarrassing client experience and what that felt like. So stay tuned. My top issue with clients is communication. So here's the deal. I'm a really type A person. I love to draft an email with all the details. I like to draft a text message with all the details. Not so hot on phone calls because I kind of second guess myself about whether I'm going to leave something out. But even if I have a phone call, I kind of have a bulleted list of what I'm going to do and what I'm going to talk about. But this is what I found with my clients. They're not like that. Or if they are, this topic of finances and me being their bookkeeper is not something they like. They are going to avoid this like the plague. That's why they hired you as their bookkeeper. So communication has been a real struggle. I'll be honest, I really thought I was straight ghosted from a client for like 2 weeks. And this was my first client. If you've never watched my interview video with my first client, I'll link that as well. But you guys, after that first interview with him, I didn't hear from him. And I was seriously confused. Like I had done everything I thought I had said I was going to do, and I had communicated clearly. I had written an email. I had attached my documents. I had sent him a follow-up text. I sent him another follow-up text. And then I was like, what is going on? Like 2 weeks have gone by. So I called him, answered immediately. This guy just doesn't like texts or emails. So I talked with him on the phone. I was like, hey, just haven't heard from you in a while. And he was like, oh yeah, when I'm on the job site and I see an email or I see a text, it's not that I don't read it, but I don't like to respond because I don't like for it to look to my clients like I'm on the phone instead of doing their job. A phone call I can feel differently about because they can see that I'm talking to someone and I'm just doing communication, but he doesn't like those other ways of communicating. So that was on me, right? I had to learn the way to communicate with him. But there are others that you're going to do all of the things. Phone call, text, email, and they're not going to get back to you right away. This was hard for me and my type A personality to think that that other person wasn't going to communicate with me. Actually, I had a person comment on one of my videos recently saying, I don't understand how you do receipt categorization. Aren't you going to need to reach out to the client and ask every single question for every single transaction? What was this for? What was that for? And the answer to that is no. You're going to find a rhythm that you get in with your client, communication, transactions, the type of work that you're going to do. And you don't have to communicate with them every single day. Maybe not even every single week. But I really think it's a good rhythm to get into that every 2 weeks you send a follow-up email or you send a text or you do that phone call if that's what they prefer. I will say that sometimes it feels like you're a bother. Sometimes you send that email every 2 weeks and you still don't hear anything. But you've got to fish for the communication and present yourself because in the end, they're paying for your service. And whether you like the way that they communicate or not, you just have to do the best on your end to communicate the best you can with them and present the information and the work that you've been doing for them and for their business. You'll also have some clients that want to communicate all the time, that have no boundaries, that want you to respond immediately. And I will remind you, especially if this is your side business or if you're a mom or a dad and you're working but doing this on the side, or you're dealing with your kids and then you're dealing with this on the side, Don't let this infiltrate every moment of your life, okay? Even though it's a side business or a part-time business or a side hustle or whatnot, or maybe you're trying to make it full-time, but you've got to set boundaries and parameters for when you're going to work and when you're not, and that includes communication. So maybe you decide that Monday through Friday, you're going to answer any email, any call, any text between the hours of 6:30 in the morning to 6:30 at night. But that after 6:30 at night, that's your preserved personal time. Or maybe it's an evening slot that you've allotted for yourself, or maybe it's a Saturday morning slot. But you've got to understand that it is okay to not communicate at all times just because you feel like communication is important. Communication is important with your bookkeeping clients, but they also have to understand boundaries in your life that you don't have to answer just at their beck and call. Best advice here, roll with their communication level. Make sure that you are hitting your deadlines for yourself, your personal goals of when you want to communicate, but then reciprocate at the level that they want to communicate at, okay? Don't be overburdening them if they're not communicating back. Don't communicate infrequently if they want to communicate a lot. Find a happy medium and learn your client. The second biggest frustration that is infuriating with clients, and my second top issue, is payment. You would think that because we're bookkeepers and we're working in finance, that these clients would understand that we want to be paid. We deal with their money, we understand their money, we understand a very crucial and sacred part of their business, and that they would pay us with the respect that we deserve. And anyone deserves that respect, that when you do a service, you should get paid. But it's not like that. You guys, I've gone on several occasions already with clients where I haven't been paid for over 2, going on 3, sometimes 4 weeks. And I've only been doing this for 5 months. So that means that I've gone periods of time where I literally haven't been paid in a long time. And that's why I think that giving you a realistic point of view from this, you might not be making a steady stream of income with this for a while, especially as you're building your client base to clients that can really afford your service. I did make a video about how much you can expect to make an hour as a bookkeeper. That was probably about a month ago. I'll link it here. But payment is this, it's a hard subject to deal with your clients. So I have a routine of I set an amount of time or a project that I'm going to complete for a client. And when that project is completed and I've communicated to them that it's completed, I let them know that I'm going to create an invoice for my work, and then I send them that invoice. So it details out the work, it details out the hourly rate, how many hours I worked, etc. That's something I'm going to give a note about because hourly rates are hard. And I've talked about this a little bit before, but I set an hourly rate for myself. I do an hourly, basis of work, and then I quote that. But a few times I've had clients that didn't understand how much I worked or why I worked that much, or I just kind of got like an eyebrow raise, like, you quoted 3 hours for that? And I've never lied on an invoice of what it's taken me. But sometimes that hourly rate I think is frustrating for the client. And I think I might be changing my mind that a set price for a project might be more worth it. And I think that comes with experience, but I'm going to make a separate video about that. So I've kind of had clients fall into 2 categories. Pay me right on time, or not really pay me. Maybe pay me little bits. I've had one client that's paid me a chunk and now needs to pay me another chunk. And I don't know when that chunk is coming. But one of my biggest tips here, I think, is to make that invoice, send the invoice, send a secondary invoice if necessary, reminding them, and then send a receipt for any payment you receive. Send a receipt that says, this is what I've been paid, this is the date that I was paid on. I want us both to have that clearly communicated, especially if a client is paying you chunk by chunk. Make sure that they know that you haven't paid your full amount, and this is what I've received so far, and this is when the secondary amount should be due. I do think it's important to put a due date on an invoice, even if you're like, oh no, it's fine, like pay me anytime. People need something to go back on and say, this is when it was due and this is when you paid me. And that helps you communicate what you've been paid and what you expect to be paid. Even though it feels really kind of icky to set a due date sometimes, that's necessary. I think the other thing that's a little tricky about getting paid is that there's a lot of different ways to get paid, and there's a lot of different ways that people like to pay you. Depending on their business model, some people like to use PayPal, some like to use Venmo, some like to use Zelle or Zeal, I don't know how you pronounce it, but it's like a bank transfer. Others like cash, some like checks. And so you have to be either flexible with how you are willing to be paid, or really, really clear on the way you want to be paid. If you only want to accept PayPal, be understanding that not everyone is going to want to do that. That might be something that you might want to bring up at the very beginning with your interview with your client, saying this is the way that payment is due, and so you can make that by blank day of the month, etc. Another tip here, just in general for payment, is that I made an invoice entry log where I list the number, the invoice number for every invoice and who that was to and whether it was paid or not. So I can go to one place and look at a clear snapshot of who has paid me and what services I've already invoiced for. I'll put a link to that resource down below just so that you can go and get an idea of what I'm talking about here. And an extra client issue that I've dealt with personally is that I think people get confused about what the bookkeeper role and responsibilities are. As I've been starting my bookkeeping business, I've kind of spread the news of my business just through word of mouth. I'm from a small community, and so I thought that word of mouth was really a good way for me to get my business name out there and to get clients. And I've been right on that. Whether it's been through Facebook, through my community, or whether it's been in person in my community, I have really gotten most of my clients through that avenue. And that's great, but it also means that people kind of know me personally. And so I think that they get confused about what I do for their business, what I could do for their business, and some of the lines for what I shouldn't or don't do for their business. One main thing that clients get confused on is whether you're a CPA or not. So a CPA is a licensed tax expert who can file your taxes. A bookkeeper cannot. I cannot file your taxes for you. I have in the past, before I ever was a bookkeeper, assisted friends and family in them filing their tax return. So they've been a self-preparer, maybe they use something like TurboTax, and they just kind of ask me generic questions that either I'll help research with them to give them a little bit better perspective of what a question might be asking. This is all just through personal experience and personal education through the IRS website because I'm a nerd and I like to read about it. But I'm not a CPA. So sometimes I'll have friends or family or people in the community that are like, hey, Rachel, can I hire you to do my taxes? And I'm like, oh, not really. I can help you do your taxes, or I can help you prepare for your taxes. But no, I personally cannot file your taxes. Or I'll have people that are in the community be like, hey, Rachel, can you start up my LLC? And I'm like, oh, not really. I can help you set up your LLC, but I'm not a lawyer. I can't write up your bylaws for your operating agreement. I have for a couple of people done some of the LLC startup, just like paperwork through the state. And I might make a separate video on LLC startup, not because I'm a professional expert, but because I've helped some other small business owners do that portion of it. And I do think that it's something as a bookkeeper you can aid in doing, but you have to be careful marketing that because, again, not a lawyer, not a CPA to do tax returns. So people sometimes get confused about what a bookkeeper can and can't do. Oh, you guys, we're at my embarrassing moment story. I don't really want to tell you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. And I promise I'm not faking this. I literally don't want to tell you, but this is what happened. I guess it was in maybe December. I was going on Facebook and I was trying to market myself, and I'll link the video here where I talk about Facebook marketing. And by the way, marketing and advertising on Facebook are two different things to me. When I say market myself on Facebook, I mean like make posts on my business page and share them on my personal page. I don't mean like paying for ads. I don't do that. I'm just not there yet. But so I made a message to clients on Facebook, and I made it generic because I wanted to kind of have like an overview of what I would say to this this business owner that I'm reaching out to. And I made like a hi blank, right? So I literally put a blank. I was like typing in a Google Doc, And then I would copy that into Facebook and then personalize it a little bit. So take out the blank and put the business name in there and maybe a little something extra if I know about their business and have like visited before or something like that. So yes, I did do this. I sent to a business owner, hi blank, not their name. I sent blank. And I didn't even notice. I had a couple business owners reach back out and say, hey Rachel, like thanks so much for your message. We already have a bookkeeper, but we'll keep you in mind. Okay. But the one that I put the blank in was not so friendly. Actually, that's not true. Step back. I say that because I'm embarrassed. She was friendly. She was nice. But she said, I want to let you know that I already have a bookkeeper, but it would not help you or benefit you to send this message out to prospective clients and not put their name in there. It looks very unprofessional and would not aid you well in getting new clients. Just thought you should know. You guys, when I read it, I literally like gasped for air. I am never unprofessional, or I'd never tried to be unprofessional. And how horrible I felt that I had sent this message, like saying like, hey, want to hire me to be your bookkeeper? I would love to work with you. But didn't even take out the blank in the message. You guys, it was so embarrassing. I was like, okay, so I can just crawl in a shell and never respond to this person and just like back out and like maybe not even do bookkeeping anymore because I've obviously made a fool of myself. But I decided to type back and say, you are so right. I apologize so sincerely. I hope that you can provide me some grace, and congratulations on your beautiful business, and I hope you all the success in the world. Never heard back. That's okay. She doesn't owe me a response. No business owner owes me a response. But you guys, I was like mortified that I had done that because it felt disrespectful. I felt like I had been disrespectful to a business owner. So here's my thing. You learn from it. You never do it again. Give yourself grace and then move on. Take a big breath. Remember that you can fail. This is realistic. It's going to happen that you're not going to be perfect. And then try again next time and do better. You guys, working with clients is really tough. It's not easy. Getting clients in the first place isn't easy, but we're not perfect and neither are those business owners. Give them grace, give yourself grace, work through it. You wouldn't be a bookkeeper if you didn't have clients. And last tip here, don't be a bookkeeper if you don't like people. If you don't like people and you don't like communicating with people and you don't like dealing with people, you should not be a bookkeeper. You guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you like my new camera quality. Loving it. If you have enjoyed this video, hit subscribe if you haven't already. If you're one of my subscribers, all my love to you. Bye guys.